Oh, it looks pretty bright. Yes, sir. Thank you, God. Let's get some music going. Hi. Hi, Lakeside. Laura. Hey, Mindy. I'm still kind of getting set up, but let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm vibing this, though. This is good. You guys hear that? Yeah. Hey, Bunny. Yeah, I appreciate it. Hey, Rhonda. Much love, Spirit Fam. Why am I? It's always like I'm super cold. Can you guys tell me how my volume is or my sound? Okay, thank you. This music is last time, the reason, if you guys remember, the last time I went on the live, thank you, Bunny. Last time I went on the live, I played the Drummer Boy. It was around Christmas, and we were talking about Christmas symbology. And at the, I had did a good amount of stream already. I did like an hour or a bit more. And it stopped suddenly, and that was because I got a copyright, because you're not allowed to they'll make fun of me, because I got a copyright strike for playing that music. So anyway, this time I looked up, non NPM, or non copyright, or I'm sorry, I'm still trying to zone in, but I looked up non copyright music. This one sounds pretty good. I am going to give it a minute. Yes. Yeah, that would be pretty cool to be playing customized music. But I am going to give it a minute. I'm also sort of getting into the zone. Yeah, we had a really great conversation, by the way, last night. I know there was some people who were trying to connect. So that's why whatever I'm going to talk about, and this is kind of spontaneous, so, y'all pray for me. But I know there were some people. So I know there was some people like Stefania that were talking about that they were trying to connect and that they were having trouble connecting with the Discord. But there's Stefania. We were just talking about you. So usually I feel like our ambassador is Bunny. So yeah, we had a good call last night. It was deep. That was deep. That's all right. We'll do it again next week. But Stefania, I don't know how we tried to get it to you before, but I mean, whatever format, we can give you a link. Oh, you know what? And part of it is too. Well, we have to give you a link, but I guess we have to, or she has to talk to Jeff, right? That's the new way that works for getting into Discord. Yeah. I wonder if we can just invite a person. But I mean, if you, Stefania, I'll say this. So what we do, so you kind of, right, the Discord is like not super busy. Sometimes of course it gets more busy than others. But we are meeting on Fridays, and then we talk about basically subjects that more or less we would have in common. NDEs, STEs, OBEs, dreams, interpretation, what we get from studying spiritual, or reflecting spiritually, and lots of other stuff. So we, everybody is welcome, and they tend to be pretty good, pretty deep. So yeah, I'll let somebody handle that, so I'm not overly focused on that. So I'm going to talk about two things. First, I'm going to get my glasses actually first. But I'm going to talk a bit, I'm going to share a bit because I think it makes sense about what I've been doing for the last few months, which is writing a new book about dreams. And then I won't do that too much, especially after that last, whatever that last comment was on Jeff's stream, where they were like, tell them to stop hawking their books. And I'm like, hey guys, come, I'm going to talk about my book. But I do think that I have no issue with that. I find that kind of strange, but I mean, I think if it just makes sense with certain subjects that the person wrote a book about it, and then like what they shouldn't mention it. I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. So I think the thing is, when we're talking about a book or whatever you're talking about, and this is always what I try to supply when we're having a meeting or when we are having a live stream, is to provide you with value. If I were to be sweet about it, I would say to provide you with value because you already are valuable. So everybody who knows me pretty well knows that, like, I'm trying to, besides share what I do, to stir up the spiritual gifts in others by showing them, for example, like, okay, when you dream, it has a particular purpose. There's something in operation. It's not meaningless, right? If we were to be playful about it, we'd be like, don't go telling the kids that their dreams are meaningless. I mean, I'm sure you can pretty much feel me on that, right, Susie? Like, why are we telling kids? Again, I think I've said this before, but let's do this again before I get up and get my glasses. If we tell kids, thought experiment. If we tell kids, they come in there like, oh, I had this really crazy dream and I was flying with a dragon, and and we're like, that just means you had too much candy last night, right? Or it just means stress. It's like gibberish. You could see in that thought experiment, like the kids would be like, oh, okay, right? And then they start to believe that life is like that. Like life also is just meaningless. It's just this mess of complexity. Whereas if you tell kids, hey, children, your dreams are tremendously meaningful, deeply meaningful. They're actually messages coming from within you, from a greater part of you. And it speaks in the language of imagination, really symbolic imagination. And it communicates at a level, like this is the stuff that we always want to remember with dreams when it comes to kids. It speaks at a level which says that they are geniuses. That's what it says, right? It speaks at a level that says, just like when we examine the subconscious mind, which all beings have, which all human beings have, it says that there is a genius inside human beings. And what we are trying to do to a degree is to tap into that. Okay, let's get the glasses. Oh. So, yeah, we can get some snacks. So what I was going to say was I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of the book. I didn't plan anything, so I'm not going to talk too much about the book. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then I'll see what my spirit has to say about it. But then you guys can ask me questions. Right? You can ask me whatever questions you want about if you have a particular dream that's on your mind. Okay? Hopefully that sounds good. My mind, brother Steven is just joining us. What's up, Steven? My mind tells me about dreams. I just ask for interpretations. So that's good. Thank you that you guys, it makes it easier to engage when you all engage. The process of interpretation on dreams and interpretation, it's interesting when we talk about the part of it that's conscious and the part that's not conscious. Because the way I would explain it to a degree is that what we do when we interpret, get me on this, what we do when we interpret is we tap into the same part or the same frequency that had the dream. See? If we can get ourselves to go into that, to imagine it, to feel that frequency, to feel the feelings that are in that, then we begin to be able to interpret it, right? It's connecting to the language of symbology. Hey, Jet. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining in. I gotta admit, I gotta tell you guys, I definitely have a desire, even if I don't have the skills yet, to host a show like Jeff. You know, like I like the idea of having a platform and a format where, and by the way, I mean, if I, in the future, I'm going to work on, and I was playing with it, doing a Zoom and bringing some people on to talk about their dreams. So we can do that. But yeah, so I like that idea of platforming, not just dreamers, but that's an important part of it. Okay, so I guess I'll start just by talking a little bit about. Sorry. Let me read just a little bit. Let me catch up with y'all a little bit before I go in. Hey, Stefania. I'm glad y'all are here. So like I said, I'm going to talk about the process I've been going through writing and what's the outcome, and then I'm going to talk a bit, and then we'll talk more generally because I want to keep y'all engaged. You know, I worked for many years as a teacher and trainer, and you want to keep the people engaged. And yeah, so thank you, by the way, for that, for Stefania, because I think that is, we've talked about it. Maybe Susie might be my first guest. I think, because we chat, pretty fairly often, at least once a week, and I think that would be good. So, but we'll work on that. We'll work on that. Okay. So if y'all want to do it with me, I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read your comments a little bit more. I don't think I'm going to Zoom now or today because I planned this so spontaneously, but that is the idea, Leonard, because as you've said, and many people have said, people seem to enjoy it the most when we do the dream interpretation live. I mean, you guys can tell me you were in the audience when we did the dream interpretations live, which we're going to do now, where you're giving me your dreams and then I comment. So that's an interesting way. Again, that's always an interesting way to approach it. Now, if we want to make it, and I hope you guys can appreciate this because it's kind of cool in its own way, it is another level of intensity when people come on. You know, like I remember we had the shows where Rhonda came on and we interpreted live. We talked about dreams live, and then Soren came and did it. And there was also AJ, Angela Loggins. God bless her. Are you saying I'm going slow? All I know that Saturday nights we're getting out of control with some of the pop-ins. Yeah, yeah. By the way, how you guys can tell me how was you like the show? It seems like most people were vibing the second guest in particularly. So just hold on. Steven says, if I say subconscious, the mind will show me a sub looking around the periscope. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Actually, that would be a great example of classic dream symbology, right? Like it always finds this ingenious way to express itself. And a submarine would be a great example of the subconscious. Yeah. So the first guy was too intense. Yeah, I think people were commenting when you did the live, Stephen. Okay. So anyway, sorry, I'm gonna do a deep breath if you want to do it with me, and then we'll talk about our first subject. We'll enter in. Okay. It's always good to take a good deep diaphragmatic breath. You know, in the scriptures it says that God breathed into man and made him a living soul, right? And there's a way in which our breath reflects our emotions. Yeah, just super quick on this. It's miscellaneous, but it is very profound. Our breath reflects our emotions. There's a whole bunch of different emotions that have different states that they represent. So if a person's like, right, that's a type of breathing that represents fear. If they represent, that's relaxation. Anyway, okay. So I'll tell you all honestly, I'm not that much in the mood to talk about my book for some reason, but it is what I have been doing for the last few months, and I want to pay it the honor it's due of just talking about that, because it definitely puts you in a particular state. So here's what the process was. I interpret a bunch of people, right? I've interpreted hundreds of dreams now. So I decided to write a series called Dream Detective, where I would categorize a bunch of dreams and then produce a book on it, because it'd be the dreams along with the interpretation, along with a big part of it was showing people how to become a dream detective themselves, because I figure that's like you want to be able to, what we used to call in martial arts, you want to be able to show and prove it, right? And I figured people would like the idea from a perspective of, like, I used to have books like Choose Your Own Adventure, and also another one which is pretty old called Encyclopedia Brown. And when I would do the Encyclopedia Brown, you get the mystery, like a detective novel for kids, and you get to solve it yourself, and that's engaging, right? So it was kind of like that idea, except it was specifically with dreams, right? So in the first series, it's the first volume is volume 1, which I published last year. So it's Dream Detective Volume 1, Amazing Messages from Within. So in that book, there are tons of super personal messages. If anything, that proves, and is something we should all take note, is that your dreams are commenting on your inner life for sure. There's no way to go around that. That's, again, I've done this. I'm like a scientist in this. I've done it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, right? And then there's that part of it where you have proven it over and over again. And then there's the part of it where people react, which I always talk about, because part one is we're interpreting it in a way that's understandable, your dream, and then we're saying it's saying something personal about you, right? It's saying something personal about your life. And so one of the things I talked about in this book, the one I just wrote, was I was interpreting, and you're all going to like this one, I think. So I was interpreting for somebody, and in the interpretation, okay, I was interpreting for a woman who was having marital problems, and she called me in front of another family member. And then her dream revealed that she was thinking of leaving the relationship, right? Did y'all get that? Because if you do, then you would see how true that is, right? How true that is. So anyway, in this book, I talk about I compiled books that or dreams that were related to what I thought was this subject: love, sex, and the pursuit of wholeness. And it's pretty trippy. It's pretty trippy. You know, like even me as a dream detective is really, really interesting to see how people dream about like this issue, right? Yeah, that is the title. Even though, I mean, it's a serious subtitle and it seems like super intense, but I felt like that is what it was. I started off with a different subtitle, and in this case, I'm thankful for that it's a title and a subtitle. But the stuff that gets revealed when people dream about romantic issues, about all this stuff. People dream about marriage all the time, lust, sexual desire, divorce. I have people who dream about pornography addictions, masturbation, using sex toys, all sorts of things. And I mean, I always approach this very like a sacred subject, but that's the truth. And it gets expressed. You guys, it is so deep the way people are expressing these subjects in their particular dreams. Now, of course, I'm biased. I just spent all this time meditating on it, but that's why I chose it as a topic. So I'm just going to give you one example. Like I said, I'm not going to talk too much about the book. That I am going to be doing that. But I want to give you an example so you can appreciate where I'm coming from in how compelling the subject is. One of the most fascinating dreams that I've ever interpreted, which is in there, is about a woman, someone who dreamt about their friend. Okay, so they dreamt about their friend, and in the dream, their friend was standing on top of a bunch of decaying dog skeletons. I called this dream Dog Skeleton Mountain, and it was a relatively short dream. She's like, oh, my friend was standing on top of all these decaying and putrefying dog skeletons. Right? And then suddenly the scene turned to her mother at the hospital. Yeah, dog bones. Right? So here's what I did with this. Okay, so you got the scene. You got that in mind, right? Now, again, normally the dream comes at you, and because it's so weird, you're like, oh, I don't know, but you don't do that. You just push into it, right? So that's what I did, because the first moment when I heard it, I didn't know what it was. And again, Dog Skeleton Mountain. The dreamer made it a point of saying it wasn't just skeletons. They were in these dog carcasses, were in various states of rot, and putrefaction was the word she actually used. So it was a very grotesque, right? And again, then this woman standing on top of it. So then I think about this and I say, hey, like this is literally how it happened. Yes, good. I'm glad you said ooh, because that was the scene. That's how I got it in my imagination. And when you guys do that, when you're like, ew, that means you're being a dream detective because you're going into their imagination. So I enter in imagination, and then I'm like looking there for a moment, and then I just ask intuitively, why is she on top of a bunch of dog skeletons? And I get the answer in the form of men are all dogs. Right? Men are all dogs. You guys got that? Because that's an important part. So again, I asked, hey, why is she standing on top of dog skeletons? And the voice came back and was like, it reminded me of the common phrase, men are all dogs. And as soon as I said that, I was like, a whole bunch of stuff clicked in my mind. And I said, yes. And I said to the person who had the dream, I said, is your friend a very attractive woman who's had a whole bunch of like really toxic relationships? Yeah, y'all getting me? I'll tell you what I asked her again. Is your friend a very attractive woman who's had a bunch of toxic relationships? And this was one of the coolest reactions I ever got, Susie. One of the coolest reactions I ever got, where the woman said, oh, the dreamer who was dreaming about her friend said, yeah, and we're going to talk about that. The dreamer said, how did you know that? Like, she was like, how did you know that? She's like, yeah, my friend is super attractive and has a lot. And okay, so here's the next part of it, since you guys are following along. All right, it gets deeper. Whew, this is so deep. So then the dreamer says, yes, my friend is extremely attractive, and she's been having a ton of toxic sexual relationships with guys ever since she had an ugly divorce. Right? Again, she's like, she had a ugly divorce, and she kind of flipped out and was just like, I'm just going to be as promiscuous as I want. Right? So, her being the attractive one is why she's on top. But obviously, y'all understand how deep it is that they're saying these relationships are super toxic, right? And she's thinking of it as, again, I'm like having dominion over this, but really it's just poisoning her because she's standing on top of a bunch of decaying poison. I'm glad that you get for the yikes, because you then understand, like, oh yeah, okay, right? Yeah, and it's going to go deeper. We're going to go a little deeper. This is a short one, but it's one of the most. I'll tell you guys, I did the AI art for this, and this was one of them where I was really glad because I got a pretty good image. I don't have it yet, but I'm getting it tomorrow. I got a pretty good image for Dog Skeleton Mountain, y'all. I did, I had to keep putting it in there. Okay, beautiful woman standing on top of a bunch of decaying dog skeletons. But I think I'm really grateful that you guys, some of you are saying like, whoa, it's so deep, because yes, it is. It's really, really remarkable that people conceive this way. Now, I'm going to give you just a little bit more on the same dream. Now, this is where it gets weird, and this is where me being a dream detective and having dream detective skills honestly helps, because there's a bunch of stuff that comes from experience. So think of it as two quick scenes. First scene, the beautiful woman, the friend, is on top of the decaying dog skeletons, which are relationships. In the next scene, her mother, the woman's mother, is in the hospital with heart trouble. Okay? Yeah, but I want to show this connection here. All right? And it's not an easy connection to show. Until you see it, then you see it. So again, part one for Dana is the dream is, in the dream, this is for someone who dreamt about their friend. The dreamer said, my friend was standing on the top of a mountain of rotting dog skeletons, standing on top of a pile of rotting dog skeletons. Then the scene went, guys, to a hospital. All right, so y'all following me? Rotting dog mountain, hospital. Now, here's where it gets clearer. In the hospital, her mother is there and she has heart trouble. The reason for this is because that woman, the woman who's standing on top of a bunch of dog skeleton mountains. Oh, sorry. Okay, thanks, Dana. The person who's been standing on top of, she's a mom. Okay, she's a mother herself. So the friend thinks that this will hurt her role as a mother. Right? Sometimes people think when you transition from one scene to another, they're not connected, but they're usually like a cause-effect connection. Right? So hopefully that example made sense. I'm going to get something to drink. Oh, I'm just going to take a sip a minute. And then if you guys want to start to ask some questions, I think I see one from Straw that I'll mention in a second. You said you wouldn't have gotten that? Yeah, but I hope again it makes sense. It's just really interesting. People another one really quick I'll tell you guys that appeared twice. This one I know you guys will find this interesting. Good night, Dana. Welcome. Two things that appeared were snakes. Snakes were very present in two of the dreams that were in this. One of them was about pornography. And in that one, like y'all got to vibe this. Yes, Susie. So in the dream, the guy buys a pet king cobra. Could you guys vibe that? He buys a pet king cobra and it's trying to kill him the whole time, but he keeps trying to manage it. I'm not going to talk any deeper about that. The other one is really deep because it's about this young man who's trying to get answers. Like, y'all got to vibe this. To me, this sounds really exciting. It's about a friend of mine who was looking into getting married, and then he had this really intense dream. And in the dream, he goes to his family's house to get counsel, because they're a very traditional culture, about getting married. And he goes to talk to his aunts and uncles and stuff. And in their bed, he finds a giant snake. Can you guys vibe this? A giant snake being in the marriage bed. And then they say stuff like, oh, you have to play a flute to remove it because it tries to strangle him. So yeah, some very, very intense stuff. Okay, I see you guys are starting to put some symbology comments, so I'm going to start addressing them. If you want any questions either about symbology or about dreams in general or your dream. And I also thank God for everybody here. I pray that you're having a good night. Yeah, I'm grateful for you and for our fellowship, and I encourage you. Okay. Let's see. So Bunny says, I had a dream about my dead cat last night. She was dying and I was holding her. It was kind of horrible. Sorry to hear that. Yeah. It depends what's going on, because you could get a dream like this in two ways. If you're concerned about your cat, then it would express itself that way, where you're sad about it because there's like an anticipation of grieving or something like that. Like, again, depending on what the health of the cat is, or it could be something emotional, which sounds like those two things are on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're not. But it could be symbological, but it's representing a concern, obviously. Okie dokie. I want a remote view. Yeah. We should do a talk on remote viewing. Okay. Stefania says, dream of a snake can indicate something unpredictable or untamed in your life. Yes, Stefania. So in this way, you can see how what you just said, the symbology of what you just said applies to, for example, the person who was looking into marriage, right? And in particular, it wasn't even about marriage. It was about the advice they were getting about marriage, so that it didn't match what the experience would be. In that way, it is literally what you just said, something unpredictable or untamed in your life. Another way of thinking about snakes in shorthand is they are associated with unpleasant surprises, right? And symbolically, we can know that this would make sense, because if a snake sort of sneaks up on you, that's the main thing that's creepy about it, right? Like, that's why we use the term snake in the grass. Other comments. I have to keep taking my glasses off and on. Oh, okay. So Jet asked, what's your take on prophetic dreams? That's a really excellent question. I don't get asked about that much, interestingly. You know, Jet, it's interesting how sort of like maybe it's because that's what I offer, because I interpret things symbolically. I don't get, only a few dreamers think about the conversion of how things apply to their practical life. But I definitely think that, hey, Miss Maskless, good evening, welcome. Talking about prophetic dreams, let's refer to Joseph. All right, where's my Joseph book around? Yeah, here's Joseph. So yes, I believe in prophetic dreams for sure, right? When I was a kid, I like to tell this story where I used to read Joseph and the Coat of Many Colors over and over and over again. And that has many elements of prophetic dreaming. It might be the essential sort of story about dreaming in the scriptures. What's interesting about this, one interesting way to think about this is, if y'all can vibe with me on this, I read this book over and over and over again as a kid. You see, like when I was like 8 years old and maybe till 10, I just kept reading it. It was one of those like, your mother's like, you're reading that again? Sort of like that. And it's interesting because this book highlights and tells you the story about someone who uses their dreams, who interprets dreams, and that ability to interpret dreams changes their life and changes the world. So, amen to that. But I don't have, considering how many clients I have, Jet, I haven't had that many clients who have had what I would classify as prophetic dreams. What is much more common, and it seems to be a related category, are premonitions. So Rhonda, for example, who's typically in the chat and who I've worked with, has a lot of premonitions. And I will also take this opportunity to say that, interestingly, one of the places where premonitions come up really often, like in an unusual rate, is with babies being born. So I don't know what the occult symbolism is there, even though I have speculated on it, but I'll say that again. One of the times when people have dreams that are premonitions that translate over, right, where I'm having a dream that my auntie is pregnant and then it turns out she is, that's a dream that actually comes up fairly often with family and with friends. So one of the things, we hypothesize with that idea is that when babies come into the world, there's not only a physical conception, but there's a spiritual conception. Very interesting idea. Okay. Other questions. And usually you guys have such, intense questions. Let me see. Okay, Bunny. But you can start out. You can ask me some weird dreams if you wish. Bunny says, if you knew the story behind the way she died, you'd get it. Okay, I am tortured over and over again in my mind. I just want to hold her again. Sure, that's what that's about. Leonard mentioned dreaming. Okay, so let me say this, Bunny, as a bit of encouragement. Okay. And for everybody, this is something which I feel like I have been spiritually educated in as I've been doing interpretation. So dreams are working similar to how an organ in our body works. It's doing a sort of process for you, except typically it's an emotional processing. It's an emotional catharsis, right? So I want to say that again. Dreams represent and are aiming for an emotional catharsis. There's something in the dreamer that's heavy, that's in their emotions, energy and motion inside the body, that's moving, that's concerning them. And so the system takes it over, the spirit, and it processes it. So as much as that can be an encouragement, I hope it is a little bit, that when we have these, these burdens upon us in the dream, while we dream, these things are being worked upon. I frequently say that, and I made a post about it today. I was saying, and I thought it was that the dreaming mind is like a wise therapist, and it's trying to get you to confront and resolve your issues. A matter of fact, yeah, it's trying to take the issue, express it first subconsciously in symbols, and then to get you to even to help that process, you would become conscious of it. Right? So even you talking about the dream in a way, Bunny, helps you to process the emotions. And I do pray that grace be upon you. We do come into agreement that grace be upon you and grace be upon your mind and your emotions, sis. Okay. So to babies, yeah, babies are very spiritual. I'll tell you, I had an interesting dream. Y'all can maybe vibe with this one. I'm not going to go into tremendous detail, but somebody was getting divorced and they had a dream that they were on a mountaintop, and they were coming down the mountaintop holding a little baby. And it was very interesting because the idea was that while they were experiencing all this stuff associated with the divorce, they were trying to keep their purity. So a baby, I'll just make a little bit further. A baby is a classic symbol of life, purity, etc. Right? So in terms of symbolic vocabulary, that's what it means. But then the way that this symbolic vocabulary works is you put it together with another idea, and then it has a meaning. So if I have a baby, we can say, oh, that means innocence. It means life. It means purity, right? But then if in the dream, it's somebody else's baby, let's say the dreamer is dreaming about their spouse, or they have a baby, and it's somebody else's baby that their spouse had with someone else, then it becomes, even linguistically, it represents the violation or betrayal of the things we just said baby means. I don't know how well I explained that, but hopefully, because one of the things I'm working on myself, but I try to explain to people, is how dream language works, where people ask me oh, do the symbols actually have a meaning? Yes, just like words, the symbols have a meaning, each one of them, but it's the general meaning, just like words, and how people use them has a little bit of variation. And then when you put those symbols or those words into a sentence symbolically, it becomes more complex. What do we say? A picture is worth 1,000 words, and a symbol is worth 1,000 pictures. So, okay. Jet says, dreams of gypsy woman stirring pots. Oh, this sounds interesting. Okay. Jet, dreams of gypsy woman stirring pots, dirt, leaves in water, chanting at me. Usually what they say comes true. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna read that again. This is a great one, Jet. Because it's a good length and it's good in terms of the symbology. It's fascinating. Again, Jet wrote dreams, or in other words, I don't know what you are, Jet. Dreams of, other than a soul, sorry. Dreams of gypsy woman stirring pots of dirt, leaves in water, chanting at me. Usually what they say comes true. So certainly, let's see how we would do the interpretation. Certainly, I start to have a basic instinct that first occurs to me when we hear that, right? What do you guys hear when you when you hear that? I think most of you will get a certain idea of a witch, right? Like some, like the Hansel and Gretel sort of witch. Stirring now, once we break down that idea, that's the sort of whole of the idea. Okay. So I hope you're getting this, Jet, because I think, when we have dreams, again, they're for us. So the first idea is this idea of like an effect, right? Because that's a way you would think emotionally of witchcraft, of somebody doing witchcraft. And the idea of it being witchcraft seems to be my intuition, in other words, seems to be confirmed. And again, you can argue, you can disagree, but seems to me to be clear, one, in that she's stirring something, and then that what she says comes true. So this faculty, Jet, that's being addressed is some sort of addressing of of what we would regard as like a supernatural, that might be the right word, effect that that you are experiencing. Now, why are you experiencing that? I don't know, but again, going deeper. So dreams of a gypsy woman. So what we would do is first, as we start to think about like, well, what is the energy, or what's the thing that's being addressed? We know it has to do with the idea of a gypsy. So the idea of a gypsy is something like being lawless, right? Not following particular rules, being of a particular group. But I think the lawlessness might be the association. Stirring pots of dirt and leaves in water gives the sense of a ritual. I'll say that again. So women stirring pots of water and dirt and leaves implies the idea of a ritual. The ritual itself represents a type of lack of purity. Okay, you see that? You see that part of it? So in other words, what are you going to do with a pot of water if it has dirt and leaves in it? Okay. So yeah, I mean, if I was, depending on if I was thinking about this, I would wonder about what effect is, like, for example, I would ask what's the effects of the dreams? Like when you say they come true, are they, is it good? Are those good dreams that come, bad dreams that come? But that's a really interesting one. Yeah. Very, very fascinating. And especially when you say gypsy, it reminds me of certain characters that appear frequently in people's more spiritual dreams. Like I used to have a dream where I was in a subway, and this creature who was like a little lady with an old dress and with this long gray hair appeared. She was able to fly around. Very, very creepy. Okay, let me go down a little bit. I'm just going to look through your comments. I don't know how much longer I'm going to go. All right, speaking of dreams, I'm about to go have one right now. Good night. Good night, Stefania. Thank you for stopping by. Yes, you're welcome, Bunny. Yes, Rhonda says I'm fading fast after a long day. Oh yes, congratulations! Because I remember you mentioned you were prepping last night and then getting ready to go sing. But my singing went very well at a memorial service, and I got many compliments. Much respect. Nighty night. Go Ravens. Okay. Glad to hear it. Very, very glad to hear it. Very, very glad to hear it, Rhonda. Okay. So just going a little further, Jet says, not witches. They are pretty, not ugly. They are wearing silk, I think is what you mean. Interesting. Interesting. So, in that way, Jet, my honest reaction, okay, and sometimes it gets a little weird. Like one of the things that I say, even when I have times where I'm like, I don't know exactly what that means immediately, but again, I feel like I can always interpret it. Is sometimes what the thing seems to be saying is a little bit like, ooh. But I'll tell you this, for example, Jet. If the people that are, if the women that are stirring the pot are beautiful, then that represents the power of beauty. That I would say I'm 100 on. Okay, because the power here is represented as that stirring, as that creating in the pot, and who's doing it? The power of beauty. So the power of beauty is producing a certain effect, but again, it's not. It is problematic. I mean, in the symbology, just in the sense that the water is impure. That's the challenge of the symbol. I often have dreams of witches, and they are often hot. I never have dreams of witches. I did have, like I mentioned, I had a dream last night, which I don't remember exactly what the dream was, but I thought it was interesting because in the dream, I woke up at like 6 o'clock, and I was going to be like, okay, I want to remember this, so I just noted it to myself, and I said, this dream is about removing veils. You know, this dream is about removing veils. And then I fell asleep, and I remembered that, but I don't remember what the conception of it was. But in the spiritual sense, you know, the idea of moving veils. So, okay. Well, it's 11 o'clock. So I think that those are, yeah, I'm working on my dream cards. So I think that was a good solid hour. I kind of wanted to provide a follow-up, and also, like earlier, I don't know, earlier in the day, I was helping someone, and then I was wondering how effective I was when I was helping. So I always like to feel like I'm serving each day, you know. Yeah. And and of course, I appreciate the fellowship. I'll talk up again for a minute. How, you know, I thought last night was a really, really good meeting. Yeah, we've had some fascinating and edifying, sometimes challenging conversations, but it's good. It's good. Oh, Susie says it was a good one, and thanks for not yelling at us. You know, I don't know if you guys want to talk about this. I don't know if you want to talk about this now, or if you even want to talk about this. But I didn't really get exactly what you guys meant with the first guest when you were talking about yelling. I think I missed it. You know. Did he like yell like, "Come on, guys, get it together for the sake of the planet," something like that? Yeah, last night I feel like was one of the deepest meetings we've had. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, I remember it. The main thing I remember, hopefully this is not too bad to say, is I remember when his light came on. I thought that was great. Yeah, I didn't interpret it like that either. But I was like, wait, maybe did I miss it? I do tend to get excited myself. So, and by the way, you get a better picture of my new chair there. Okay, well, thank you again, everybody. I don't know if you are okay. Yeah. Um, if you are going to go, I don't know if are you guys going to still be in the Discord chat? Yeah, thank you, Leonard. Yeah, I'm just wondering. Okay. Well, good night, everybody. I appreciate you so much. I thank God for your gifts. I'm just going to say a word of you. I thank God for your gifts. I thank God for the unfolding of your gifts. The same way that from a caterpillar emerges a butterfly, I thank you that everyone here and everyone, Lord, who is called and it's their time on this earth, I thank you that they are transformed, metamorphosized, changed by the stirring up of their gifts under grace in a perfect way. I speak well of them, God, and thank you for their lives and for the opportunity to share this time together on earth. Thank you, Lord. I appreciate you. It is so. Whew, it is so. Buenas noches, mi gente.